Mhm. Well, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hey, hey.
Hello.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to Queers and Soaps. As always, I'm Tommy, and I'm joined by recurring guest stars Lynn
Greetings.
and Eric. Today, we are doing the Abby scale, and we're talking about season 5, episodes 12 through 15.
Yes, indeed.
So let me just grab my notes, and we will get right into it.
Very cool.
All right. So episode 12 was called Denials. And I put the Fairgate / Mackenzie's find out about Chip, like that he passed away
Right, exactly.
brutally.
That is comeuppance. Last episode.
Yeah.
Finally.
I have Karen has no reaction and continues to cook dinner
Yeah.
because she likes to take the pills now.
She's into that sleepy zone,
So does.
hazed over.
um, Lily May is on probation for trying to run down Chip.
Right, exactly. Her lawyer worked out a deal, it seems like, and so she gets to be on probation, has to stay at Val's house, of course. Of course, where else?
Yeah. And I think this is the episode. She's kind of this has to be the episode. She's pretty much like down on herself because now that he's dead, she's realizing that she could have killed him, and she could have been the reason that he died.
Right.
And that's kind of weighing on her conscience that she could have taken a human life.
Exactly.
Um,
But she's also sad that he never had any onus around it either.
yes.
She thought he was good. She tried to make him good, and I think she felt bad that she never got him to confess. That'll come later, but I just getting that out there.
I put Kathy tries to comfort CG. I think I meant Kathy tries to comfort Diana.
Right?
I'm like, that doesn't make any kind of sense.
No. She tries to talk to her, and Diana kind of pushes her away. Diana's really, really cold and really bitter that Chip's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
And she's like,
Pretty
doesn't
much
it
blames
bother
her, I
you? She's like, doesn't it bother you that you look so much like her? And she kind of says how like CG was a terrible person and like manipulative, and like he only used CG to like further his career. He really loved me. It was just
Poor
like, oh my
CG,
god,
even in death, the poor girl gets dragged all the time. My God, Aaron would be having a fit if he was here watching that right now.
I know. I could just like I could hear Aaron's voice be like, "Don't you talk about my CG like that."
Right. Throwing something at the TV. Diana, can't stand you.
This is why I hate Diana, because she talks bad about CG.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And she says, I'm not your friend. Basically, I'm never going to be your friend.
Yes.
I have Mac is trying to get information on the Wolfbridge group.
Right. He's got his little informant guy that he's trying to get him to infiltrate the group so he can get something to catch him. The biggest thing is this is like the West Coast mob, and Mac's trying to bring him down to have this big hitter, which is tied in with Greg's campaign.
Yeah, it's very like, this is where I get confused, and I kind of like have in the past tuned out on this story because I just didn't care. Because, Greg Sumner's not really my favorite character.
Right.
But so he appoints, earlier in the season, he appoints Mac as the head of his crime commission.
Correct.
And Mac is pretty much doing his job, but...
Correct. But Mac's unbeknownst that the Wolfbridge group has been contributing to Greg's campaign.
Yeah.
Basically, they want someone in government in their pocket too to do their dirty dealings, but yet trying to get the law to turn the other direction from them. So Greg is caught between a rock and a hard place because Mac's trying to do this thing to show that he's taking his job really seriously and align with Greg, like Greg's going to clean up the state if he gets elected senator, versus the Wolfbridge group is over here going, hey, Greg, here's money for your campaign. We're investing in you. Make sure you're turning a blind eye to our dealings and what's going on.
I guess where I get confused about this is, did he appoint Mac to this position before the Wolfbridge group got involved and started giving money to his campaign, or did he just think that the Wolfbridge Group was kind of like on the up and up, and he didn't know?
I think the Wolfbridge Group probably was giving money to Greg, and Greg knew they weren't the cleanest people, but Greg didn't ask any questions. He just took the money.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, after Mac got appointed that's when he told Greg, this is one of the big fish I'm going after. And Greg was like, oh, what a coincidence. Whoa, but he kept his mouth shut. Meanwhile, Greg is trying to keep Abby happy and get this land variance that she needs for Lotus Point, and she's buying up all this property, and it's through the Wolfbridge Group and their power that all this is happening. So you're right, it's confusing. Me as a little kid, that was over my head, but rewatching it now, I'm understanding it better. But you do have to pay kind of close attention.
Yeah, I'm trying this time. I really am.
This is probably where Knots was going a little bit down the LA law lane, because they were trying to do something that their competitors on the other network were doing. So they were trying to maybe grab that male audience with that type of dynamics. And
I mean, it's good and it's well written.
Right.
It's just
It is.
not.
Really
it
good.
just hasn't been my cup of tea in the past, but I actually am a little bit more interested this time.
Cool.
I don't. Oh, side note, Eric has Knots playing in the background behind him. I don't know if you can see.
Very funny for the viewing audience. Yep, there we go. That's planning going. Love it.
And I don't know if you notice he has a Linda Gray T-shirt on.
It's got a little homage to Dallas. Oh wow, it's Linda Gray's mugshot when she got taken in for shooting JR.
Yes.
I'm sorry, let me say that again. It's Sue Ellen's mugshot, not Linda Gray. Linda Gray, the actor, did not have a
Linda Gray's
mugshot.
like, I didn't do that.
Let's be clear.
Sorry, Linda.
We love you, Linda. It's all good.
I have Angie Finney shows up at Karen's door looking for answers about what happened with Chip.
Ooh.
And of course, you know,
I love.
she's pressing Karen, who's like, you know, taking pills because of her neck and also because of the stress of dealing with Diana.
Right.
And she's like, where's your daughter? Is she here? Is she going to move back here? What happened? And Karen's just like, I don't know. Like, call her yourself.
Like bitter. She doesn't like her brother, but she's just a bitter pill. She's kind of like, Tony got his, and she keeps calling him by his name, Tony. And then when Karen says, well, you know, he identified as Chip Roberts, she's like, why didn't he just call himself Robert Redford? She goes, I can believe it. He just thought he was slicker than he really was. So she's not sad that her brother's passed on.
I mean, she's basically just telling it how it is, like how he was as a person and how he lived
her
his
biggest
life.
thing was like, who's going to pay for the funeral? Is your daughter going to pay for the funeral? Who's going to pay for the funeral?
Yeah, she did say that quite a few times.
Multiple times.
I love that actress, Patty D'Arbanville from Guiding Light.
Yes.
She did look very familiar. I didn't watch Guiding Light back then, but maybe she's been in other things I've seen her.
She's in a lot of stuff, yeah.
I have... Mac tells Greg to stop having him tailed or he quits. And Greg doesn't admit that to him, but then when Mac's not around, he makes a phone call and he's just like, he spotted you.
Right. Because he's meeting with his informant and the whatever, the people that are watching him take off, and Mac kind of figures it out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mac's on to somebody's really keeping tabs with him, but at the same time, Mac is trying to let some of this stuff leak to the press via Ben and other avenues, because he does want Wolfbridge to know he's coming after him, because he's hoping they'll slip up, I think, as well.
There was a scene that I never really picked up on, or maybe I just didn't pay attention to. I don't know if it was this episode, but it's involving the storyline where he asks his secretary to look into some paperwork, whatever.
Right.
And she asks for more specifics, like specifically, what do you want? And then he just kind of is like, forget it, give it to me. And he fires her.
He side-eyes her. Doesn't he fire her? I thought that's when
he fires her. And then when she doesn't even put up a fight, he's like, didn't even put up a fight. And I'm like, oh, wow, was she working for them? I was like, I never put...
Well, I think
that they planted her.
I think he knew that. I think he figured out eventually in these 4 episodes we covered that Greg was the one that put that secretary in there to keep tabs on what Mac is doing.
Yeah, she was a plant, pretty much.
Correct. It's not like.
But I never picked up on that. I was like, oh wow.
Yeah.
like the details that they put into the story.
I know, exactly.
Good.
I love
Um,
it. I'm trying to remember too here, like I'm just kind of skimming my notes here really quick. Go ahead. Go ahead. I lost it. I gotta find it again here.
I put Kathy sings at a bar with friends, and Gary
Yeah.
walks in and watches her.
Right?
And I was like, "Ooh, I know this song." I was like, "Yes, this is when Nas starts doing the covers of songs that I know."
Correct. This is a Journey song. This is Separate Ways, Worlds Apart.
Separate
is the name of the
Ways.
song. So, like, this is the second Journey song because she did Open Arms. I really think, guys, this is.
Oh,
I think this is kind of one of the big problematic music right things with this show. Because
probably,
I think
yeah.
Journey's just like, no, we don't want it used in that vein anymore. It was good for that one instance, but I don't think they wanted to repeat forward. That's my guess, anyhow.
I vividly, well, I know she does the Michael Bolton song that he sang at the Emmys this year, the How Am I Supposed to Live Without You?
Right?
Because that's the song that Zach and Kelly broke up to on Saved by the Bell. But I also know that she does the Pat Benatar song We Belong.
Yes.
So maybe that's also an issue.
Could be.
Probably.
I feel like she's singing that right now when Lisa Hartman's on tour with Clint Black. She's covering a Pat Benatar song on stage. And it was
Oh yeah, I did
Yeah.
see that.
So,
And on One Tree Hill, one of the characters was a singer, and she did that song, and that's on the DVD. So maybe Pat's not the issue. Maybe it is Journey.
I think so because I
be.
know The Sopranos used a Journey song too on the closing scene of The Sopranos, and it took a lot to get permissions to release that on DVD.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
I put Gary asked why she didn't want to sing for him, and she says because he was trying to turn her into CG.
Kathy is kind of struggling to find her place. You know what I mean? With Gary, she can't really 100% figure it out.
She's a little bit confusing because I feel like she's doing this push and pull thing to mess with him.
Right?
Like she's acting like she doesn't want to be CG, but she does because it's kind of to get him like closer to her.
Right?
To see if she pulls back, if he'll chase her, kind of situation.
Right, exactly. One of my favorite things about this episode is that we got to see the funeral service, if you will, at the cemetery. And
yes.
And Chip's sister, Tony Fanise's sister, again, freaks out on Diana. And like Diana finally gets to slap somebody. She slaps her, but I'm like, I love it that her delivery was just so cold and Diana was kind of taken back. She didn't know how to really handle her versus she does a lot of yelling at her mother, and her mother, Karen, maybe kind of pulls back, but Chip's sister, she didn't care. She just went full bore on it, and it was awesome. And then Abby trying to comfort Diana, and Val's there holding on to Karen, who's kind of just in her haze. Karen doesn't even know what to do.
She doesn't intervene at all.
Nope.
She just kind of is in a daze. I have
watches them walk off.
Because Chip's sister is basically just like, wow, he really fooled you. Like basically saying he wasn't in love with you. You were just another mark.
Exactly.
Which Diana does not want to hear.
No, she's in denial.
So I have Laura goes to see Greg to question him about the coastal variant and about all his meetings with Abby.
Exactly. And he's like,
really,
you should consider getting into politics. And he's just pressing. She's going hard because she sees stuff going on and dirty dealings that Abby's doing. And she's kind of being really bold because she wants to know, because Laura herself's got her little 5% stake in this whole Lotus Point development thing too. And Abby's like, go try and buy this, go try and buy that property, blah, blah, blah.
So, yeah, well, in the last time we watched, Abby said, Laura says she wants a piece of the pie, and Abby says maybe you'll even get your own pie.
Right.
But Abby confronts Laura about her meeting with Greg, basically asking her what she's doing and telling her to butt out. And Laura's really starting to she's getting involved with Abby more than I remember her being financially, I guess.
Right.
But at the same time, she's looking out for Gary's best interest, but also feeling bad that she's lying to him.
Correct. And she's really kind of calling Abby out on it too, like what's going to happen if Gary finds out. And, Abby, now that she's married, she's like, well, I've got communal property. You know, she kind of throws that zinger back at Laura, like, what do you have? I've at least got some sort of nest egg if this all blows up. So it's her way of kind of warning Laura not to get too snoopy and to kind of keep her mouth shut.
Oh yeah, because Laura basically threatens, like, if this isn't legit, like, I'm gonna tell Gary and expose you. And that's when Abby kind of bucks and is like, it's okay, he'll leave me, but that's when community property comes up again.
Exactly.
That's why she doesn't even really care about Gary, in my opinion.
I had Kathy kisses Gary.
Yes.
I had that down too, and that's all I wrote. Or I had down it as...
That's all I wrote too, is Kathy kisses Gary.
Kathy is all I had written down. I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to lead to more here, of course, but yeah.
I have Max informant leaves town.
Yeah, he gets scared.
Yeah.
And Val talks to Mac about Karen's behavior from taking the pills. Eric agrees with Val. Karen overhears them, and she overreacts, runs upstairs, and takes another pill.
That was a great scene, though. That was one of these things where not so much eavesdropping, but you come walking into the room and people are talking about you. And if you've ever been in that situation, it's embarrassing as hell. But that's exactly what happened. You know, Karen's like, you're all talking about me, and I'm not here to defend myself. And Mac's like, well, we just want you to get help and face this. And she's like, I want you to leave me alone. Runs up the stairs. And it's like, okay, Karen's unraveling pretty bad here.
I literally was like, okay, Diana, shut up.
But it's good. I feel like Michelle Lee handled this role really well, because when the producers and writers like David Jacobs came to her and said they were going to do this storyline, she was a little resistant and worried about it at first. But the way they handled it, and it all comes full circle, is done really well. And it was really important at the time. I mean, it still exists today with like opioid addictions and things like that, but there's so many people, and there's actors that we know, we can name off several of them, that get these prescription drugs to help them sleep or whatever. And it's like they quickly become addicted. So
yeah, she got this for a neck spasms.
Yes.
And then the stress, I guess, made her tense, and she just got addicted.
Exactly.
I think that's how the episode ends, with her looking in the mirror after she takes the pill.
Exactly. She goes upstairs, freaks out, takes another pill in the bathroom, closes the bathroom cabinet with got a mirror on it, and stares at herself in the mirror. And it's like she's having that reality moment too. There's truth there, but she doesn't know how to stop it at this point. It's spiraled.
So this whole season, I'm like, after they show the credits, like go over the people's faces, I'm like ready for like the next on Knots, and it doesn't happen, and I'm just like, oh, because I feel like they do it in the later seasons, and
they do.
Yeah.
And I know Falcon Crest does it, so I'm like, it's all Laura Mars, or is that how you say it? Yeah. I'm just like, oh, where's the scenes for the next episode?
Right.
I actually looked up when to see if Michelle Lee was nominated for an Emmy for this performance, because I felt like she should have been like definitely a nominee this season.
Yeah.
She was not. She was only nominated in 1982
during Sid's
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I felt like she killed it this season.
And she's talked about it in other interviews and stuff too, how since they were getting branded as that nighttime soap, instead of a drama.
Yeah.
And they were really doing drama stuff. Let's face it. If you watched any Dallas, any Dallas of the entire 80s, it wouldn't even be the episode, or I'm sorry, not Dallas, I meant to say Dynasty. If you watched any Dynasty that aired at the same time or even throughout the whole 80s, it was just so always over the top plot versus now it was really more real, but they kind of just got slighted again in some of these interviews. Michelle Lee has said, we're the little engine that could. We're sitting there chugging along. She's like, everybody's talking about Dynasty in Dallas, and they're just kind of sleeping on Knots a little bit.
Yeah, it's a shame.
So how would you rate this episode, Len?
I enjoyed the Chip funeral and the sister freaking out, and how Karen's kind of just spiraling. I'm gonna give it an 8 on this one. I'm gonna go a little bit high. I was gonna maybe say 7, but I really kind of like how Karen's just unraveling so quickly, and how Diana was just so aggressive towards Kathy and everything, and then she kind of got her comeuppance with Chip's sister, kind of telling her how it was. So I'm gonna give it an 8.
What about you, Eric?
I was thinking 8 too, actually. I agree.
Yeah, I initially was gonna give this a low score, like a 5 or 6.
Okay.
But then, like, just reading my notes and talking about it reminded me of how good it actually was.
Right?
So I think an 8 is a fair score. I'm gonna give it an 8.
I think so. The season 5 has been really favored by a lot of Knots fans out there. So there's not a lot of sleepers this season, really.
Like filler episodes.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, episode 13 is called Witness. My first note is Val dedicates her book to Lily May,
Aww.
which was a nice, sweet scene.
She's feeling
And
bad
look
for
at
her
how it,
mom, and she's taking it out that way, trying to lift her mom's spirits. Because
Was that after
And
she
look
kind of
at-
freaked
and it
out
did.
and told Ben to leave, like make Ben leave because she was like still having like a meltdown over Chip?
where
Yeah.
she was having a meltdown over Chip at the end of the last episode,
The
and
last
so
one.
they were having dinner, and she just got up and walked into the living room, and it was like it
Was crying.
It came over her about what she had done, and the Chip was gone, and then Ben standing there in the door, and she's like, "Get out of here! You don't belong here."
Yeah.
I'll see her going away, but whatever. So yeah, now Ben's in this episode, I remember it opened with Ben and Val talking over at Ben's place, and he's like, "We need to plan a couple nights a week where it's just us time."
Yeah. I have less notes for this episode because
And
I
Val
think
said-
I think I was watching it and then I was like, I have to take notes.
Right.
So that's why my first note was Val
I have a-
dedicates to Lily May.
Exactly, because then I think Val goes home and Lily May's a little bit cold that Val wasn't there, but that's when she gives her the manuscript.
Yeah.
With Nashville Junction as the title, and then the dedication to Lily May.
Yeah. Go ahead, Eric. You were gonna say something.
And yeah, Val says that she's in love with Ben in that opening scene.
Right? Yes.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So she's kind of admitting that.
Mm-hmm.
My second
Very hard
note
for Val.
is a big one. And Val is pregnant.
Yeah, that was kind of a big one when the doctor's like, "Oh, the reason why you're feeling this way is the good news is you're pregnant. 3 months pregnant."
Mm-hmm.
Dun dun dun. So,
Yeah, this is a pretty big episode all around. I feel like a lot of stuff happens in this one.
Yeah. So, Abby's at her well, it's not really a secret, but her apartment that's attached to her office, and there's a knock at the door,
right.
Mhm.
and
I have notes
it's
about this
Kathy.
one,
Who is it?
It's Kathy, and we find out that Kathy's been working for Abby this whole time.
Right, because Kathy just wants her money and she wants to get out of town. And Abby says, you won't get paid until your job is done. Okay, here's where I wrote some notes, and I wrote it in all caps. I don't think this was originally planned, and I don't think this was in the Bible for the season. I think they made a last minute decision to decide that Kathy was hired by Abby to be brought on as a distraction for Gary. I think when we saw those first scenes and she did see Kathy for the first time when Kathy and Gary were working out at the ranch,
Yeah.
she was pretty stunned. Her reaction, I
Genuinely
don't think
stunned.
she was faking that like she did.
See, I thought about that too. That scene specifically,
Right.
and I was like, I don't know if this was planned the
I
whole
think
time.
the writers started thinking, going, "Oh no, let's write this now." Like Abby's the one who brought Kathy on because she wanted a distraction for Gary, so Gary would be very little involved with Gary Ewing Enterprises, the
Mhm.
business world side of thing, and he'd stay on the ranch. He'd try and make Kathy into CG, blah 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 blah. So it does tie in together, but I just don't believe it until this episode. They made a last minute direction change on this, and
Yeah.
this is the only thing about the entire season 5 because I feel it's really good. That's never sat right with me where I was like, that's the one thing that wasn't really there.
That's literally the scene I went to because I was like, unless Abby was just being a really good actress, I'm
Right.
like, she was shocked when she saw Kathy
Exactly.
for the first time.
just like Laurel was and everybody else was, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Well, wasn't there-
it makes sense what they did, but I'm just like a little like, okay, that was a little misstep.
Go ahead, Eric. What were you gonna say?
I thought there was a few episodes back where Kathy and Abby were together, and she said, "Oh, Abby, I need to talk to you," and Abby's like, "Not right now, Kathy." Didn't that happen a few episodes ago? I thought,
I don't know.
and I thought
I
that
have
a
kind
strong
of
recollection of
alluded
that.
to it.
I feel like stuff like that happened in these episodes.
Well, and it might be coming up too, but I just don't have a strong recollection of it.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think she was apologetic, just like she was to both Laura and maybe Abby about how much she looks like CG. But
Right.
and Abby was a little bit aloof, but I don't know.
I have Abby is disappointed to see Greg's wife is in town.
A little bit. Because it's cutting in on her nookie afternoon delight time with Greg.
Her name is Jane, right?
Correct.
Jane picks up on the vibe that there's something going on between Greg and Abby.
Right.
Jane has a...
And Mary Frances never spilled the beans that she caught her dad and Abby kind of after.
That whole messy sock scene. Like, I found your sock. What?
Yep, that wasn't brought up again.
She doesn't want to hurt her mom, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Mary Frances kind of, I feel like she knows the score. I think maybe she understands that they might have sort of an understanding, like they're a political marriage, so to speak.
She knows that she doesn't have a typical father figure in her life. She's got a dad who's got power comes first. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I have Jane has a talk with Karen about dealing with strong-willed daughters.
They can relate.
Which
Yeah.
I felt kind of like broke through to Karen for a second because it kind of gave her like another perspective maybe on the Diana situation.
Could be, yeah. I can see
Because
that.
she did kind of have like a moment. It snapped her out of her daze.
I have to go take a pill now.
For a minute.
And then she was like, nah, forget it. I'll just go take a pill. Val tries to talk to Karen about her pill problem, and she doesn't want to listen.
Yeah.
She's really being distant to Val about that, in denial.
Greg goes to see Abby, and she's jealous of his wife being in town.
Right.
He tells
But
her
I don't
Jane
know
was-
if she's just jealous because she's going to get in the way of her trying to pull her crap, or if she's actually jealous of that. I don't know.
She played kind of aloof with him, and he said he can't stay, but he said Jane's leaving tomorrow, and he'd call her. So he's like, he's trying to let her know he's not blowing her off, but right now he can't give her the attention that she wants.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and then later on, the next night, I guess, where she's getting ready for him to come over, I did have the brief thought, I was like, oh, does he stand her up again? And then he knocked at the door, and I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
But, yeah.
No.
There have been moments where I've been like, does Abby really care about him, or is this mostly just about the power? Because I've going for through most of the season, I'm like, no, she loves Gary,
Right.
but she's sleeping with Greg because she loves the power, not him.
Yeah.
But with
I don't
this
think she loves
jealousy,
Gary.
you don't think she loves Gary?
No, not at all. Because of how she is so nonchalant with everything. She's like, if anything does happen with me and Gary, I got money. So,
You're right. I think she takes Gary for granted. I think she maybe doesn't realize how much she cares for Gary until, heaven forbid, he's not there. Foreshadowing.
right, if
So-
something happens. Yeah.
So we'll see, you know what I mean? But yeah, she's wanting to keep Greg close though too, because she's got her big Alexis Carrington Colby hat on right now, and she's trying to make this Lotus Point thing happen. So she's using Greg for these land variances. She's using Laura to buy up land. She's using Kathy to distract Gary so he doesn't ask questions about what she's doing with Lotus Point. She's probably ordering extra bottles of pills sent to Karen directly so Karen doesn't ask questions about their shared property. So
I think she loves Gary. I think she loves him. She probably loves the sex. I think she also loves the fact that
good
he
for
kind of
you.
brings.
Get it, Abby.
I think she also likes the fact that he brings stability, like a family unit for her kids.
True. Her kids have
But in the last time we watched, she did say if she ever has to make a choice between love and money will win every time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the
So-
kids we haven't seen in any of these 4 episodes, by the way.
It is weird. I noticed that too. They've just kind of been somewhere else.
Yeah.
I also did notice that after the
Not
funeral, we got a break from Diana. Now this must be the break that I remember.
I think so. They eventually in one of these episodes, it doesn't come until the episode 15 that we'll talk about, but that's when Gary says to Val that Diana's in New York visiting Uncle Joe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Where am I in my notes?
Val goes to, well, here, I want to mention this because it's just important for plotline purposes. And again, I got way too many notes. Mac keeps snooping around construction site. Greg meets with St. Clair and says that Mac's investigating is getting out of control, is what St. Clair says to him. And he's like, we've provided a lot of financial support. You need to take care of Mac or we'll take care of him. So that threat is kind of ominously put there. So we get to see Sumner and St. Clair have some FaceTime together finally.
Yeah.
Val goes to see Mac to discuss Karen, and she ends up telling him she's pregnant.
And Mac is like over the moon, and then she finally even spills the beans that it's Gary's baby and not Ben's, and Mac is still happy for her and thinks it's great news.
Yeah. I love their I just love their friendship.
I love their friendship too, and I like that it formed pretty much because of this whole drug thing that Karen's going through.
Right.
It made them a little closer.
Well, and it even started for Val and Mac when Gary was locked up in jail and Val knew that he couldn't have killed CG. So Mac's really been there and been a good friend for Val, as Karen always has been. But since Karen is so freaking 3 pills from Tuesday, it's great to see Val can still have that bond with the Mackenzies. If it's not with the wife, it's with the husband.
Well, I love I think it was either the last time we watched or the first time we watched the season when she slept with Gary and she told Mac inadvertently. And he was just like, you don't have to tell me details. And he was like, pretty much like, are you a bad girl? And she was like,
That's funny.
I like that too.
Mac's like, get it. It's all good.
So I have Val runs into Gary in the parking lot. And she initially tries to avoid him, but he spots her.
Right.
This was a nice scene. This is the angst between them. Like, they still care about each other. We get a lot of these scenes throughout the series.
She's happy to see he's doing well. He's happy to see she's doing well. She holds back. And she
knows she's pregnant, and it's his, but she's not telling him that.
Him nothing. She doesn't even tell him she's pregnant. You know what I mean? She tells him nothing.
I did have the thought, though, like, because this is probably the first time they're seeing each other since he's gotten married, right?
Practically.
I would have been like, so what? Me? I would have been like, so, like, why did you want to have lunch if you were just going to marry her the next day? Like, really? That doesn't even come up. They don't even talk about it. Like, hey, remember when you stood me up for lunch and you got married?
Right?
What was that about?
Well, it does come up in episode 15, though. And I'll probably bring it up because I think I put it in my notes.
Okay. But that's how that episode ends. They go they have like a quick catch-up session.
Right.
He goes away and Val does her longing look and the credits go over her face.
Exactly.
I
have that Mac and Karen with that little...
Oh, I have down also that Greg did come see Abby at her, if you will, office penthouse. And he's got like a flower in his teeth and they kiss. So he finally makes some time for her.
Yeah, that's when I thought he was going to stand her up again. And I was like, oh, she's going to be pissed.
Right. Funny.
But he showed up. Again, I thought I was going to...
Mac tells... Oh.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. Mac tells Karen that he wants her back, remember? And that right before Gary and Val met.
Right. He hugs her in the kitchen.
He's like, I want you back.
He's given her a plea, basically, because he knows she's slipping away.
Yeah.
And she's still kind of hazed, even though he does that.
She's in her hazy face.
She just kind of, leave me alone. I don't want to deal with this.
Do you want to rate this episode? Because I think we covered it all.
Yeah, again, I thought I was going to rate this one lower than I actually am. I think I'm going to give it an 8 also.
Are you?
Yeah.
What do you think, Eric?
I'm going to go with 9. I felt like there was a lot of big reveals in it. I liked the pregnancy reveal, the Kathy reveal. Like, I felt like a lot of big things happened in this one. I'm going with a 9 for that.
I'd probably go with 8, like Tommy said too, because I do enjoy some of those things, how they unfolded and stuff. I'd maybe go a little bit higher, but I'm still a little bit sour on, really? Abby's the one who brought Kathy in? Okay, writer, sure.
This is, as a soap fan, you have to suspend disbelief and just go with it.
Exactly.
I
All
like it because it does make sense of something that she
It
would do.
does.
For
It
sure.
works. I just feel like how they played things. I feel like it was a little obvious to me. They're so good. I'm probably writing a Bible for the whole year, and I feel like that's a little bit of a misstep. And I've read that in different blogs and stuff too. Who knows?
Yeah. Do you think maybe it was like a network note? Like, ooh, make her like
Well,
more devious or
I
something.
think again they try and have Abby in the mix, and since she's fighting so much for this power, it makes sense. You know what I mean? Right now, Abby's character is just kind of like not too much. You know, it's so much more centered around what's going on with Karen and Val. This is their way of maybe forefronting Abby, because it seems like between these three women, that's the triangle on the show too, and that's why they're called Earth, Wind, and Fire. Because that's kind of what's going on. So it does just make Abby a little bit more fiery, if you will.
And it also kind of ties her to something else. It makes her have a hand in every pot.
Correct. That umbrella factor, they're really trying to push it this season, and they're doing a good job of it, actually.
Mhm.
All right. Well, episode 14 is called Secrets Cry Aloud.
Yes.
And I have Lily Mae, because she's, so happy that Val's book is about her younger years. She keeps trying to give Val stories from her childhood, and I feel like Val's like, the book's already written, Mama. Like,
right?
She's like, did I ever tell you? Yeah, Mama, I think you did.
Exactly. Well, this is the one too where Lily Mae's like cooking like crazy too throughout the entire episode.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She's so happy.
Right.
Val tells Lily Mae that she's pregnant.
She's right, because Lily Mae first found the pamphlet hidden on Val's bed, and then finally, like the next day, Val comes back from a doctor appointment or something. I think that's when she tells Lily Mae, and then she hysterically says, "Now, Mama, I don't want you to tell anybody." Might as well talk to this wall right here. I would have done a better job of keeping a secret.
Seriously, Val should know better. Her nosy mama.
Mac wants Ben to help him expose the Wolfbridge group.
Right.
And I have Mac's office and car are vandalized.
And he's happy about it because he knows he's on the right trail, because people are trying to send a message to him. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't realize how much of a message they're going to continue to send. He thinks it's probably going to stop at just his office and maybe his vehicle.
I think Ben even asks him, like, what'd you have in your office? He's like, are you crazy? I wouldn't leave anything in there.
Right.
And I'm like, well, where would you leave it? Not at home. I have Gary wants to buy a horse, but has to visit the seller to convince her to sell it to him. And Kathy goes along with him, but not before having a conversation with Abby about it.
Right.
And Abby's just like, keep him distracted.
She's like, everything but that.
Yeah. Well, she's like, because I think Kathy is like dropping notes about like singing or whatever, and Gary's just like, yeah, no, I did that last season.
Exactly.
I'm not in the record business anymore. I sold the company to, what was his name?
Jeff
Munson.
Jeff Nobody.
And she's telling Abby, she's like, she doesn't seem that interested in like making me like a celebrity, like making me a singer. Like, he's just not. And she's just like, just keep him distracted, keep him happy.
Exactly.
Where am I? Oh, Lily Mae accidentally tells Ben Val is pregnant when she goes to visit him.
I mean, accidentally is a stretch, Tommy, but sure.
Well, according to her, she thinks that he knows already.
Right.
I mean, his face when she said what she said about like being there for babysitting and blah 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 and being a grandma and stuff. He's just like eating. He's like, and he's pretending to go along with it. So she keeps babbling, and she does, and it's like, wow, that secret's out now.
So much for now. I don't want you to tell anyone, Mama.
Right? Yeah, right. Oh my God.
She probably thought, "Ooh, I know. I can talk to Ben about it. He knows."
Exactly.
I have Karen has to make a speech for Greg's campaign, and is having trouble memorizing it. So she's going over the cards with what's her name, Mary Frances.
Mary Frances, yeah.
And Mary Frances has to keep giving her the first sentence before she can like go on.
Right. And isn't this like she's practicing this just before they have to leave the house to go to the campaign headquarters to deliver the speech, and she's like, oh, everybody go downstairs, I'll be down in a minute. And isn't this when she's like looking all over and she can't find any more pills, if I'm remembering that scene correctly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But she couldn't find anything.
Yeah, because when they're at the actual campaign headquarters or wherever the speech is being made, she asked the person who's running it, do you have a tranquilizer?
Yes! I'm like, oh yeah, she's gonna pull one out of her hanky that's in her hand, just like that. Japers.
Somebody's
And
gonna
I think,
have one.
and I think she just kind of laughs off, like, I wish, and she just like looks right, just like,
She's like, but I'll get you a glass of water. Tranquilizer, glass of water, sure.
At least she'll be hydrated.
They're the same caliber.
I have Karen has a meltdown during her speech, and she has to be escorted pretty much off the stage.
Exactly.
And she's just apologizing. I'm sorry.
Right. And Mac and Val and the boys are getting her out of there right away. And then ironically, instead of taking Karen home,
She
Val
goes to
takes
Val's.
her over to her house.
Yeah. And I have when Mac, Eric, and Mary Frances go back to the house, and the house has been ransacked.
Right. And then meanwhile, Val's confronting Karen over over tea, probably chamomile tea, and Lily May made it. But, she's like trying to call Karen out on it, basically just like how Gary and his alcoholism, Karen's got her problem with pills, and Karen just excuses herself to go use the bathroom, and she goes up to use Lily May's bathroom, obviously, because then she turns and gets caught rummaging the medicine cabinet, and Val said, they gave the pills to Mama when she was at the sanitarium. They didn't send them home.
Yeah. Busted.
Damn.
So let me back up and throw one more point out here for plot-driven purposes. Ben visits an elderly couple that are holdout, and they don't want to sell their property on Lotus Point land area.
Yes.
Because they know that developers are coming through and trying to buy up property, but they're like, we're staying, our house is paid for, we don't want to move, we don't want to see the land changed. Whatever you can do to put it out there in the news that this is happening would be great. So I want to establish this elderly couple, because like the next episode, they get mentioned multiple times.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was paying attention more to this time, I was actually very intrigued by all of this.
Right.
So, okay. So this is the land that Abby has, that she shares with Karen, right? The property that she shares, Lotus Point.
Uncle that passed away. Sid's uncle, Abby's uncle.
Okay, so now Abby has a variance. So to build on this land, so she's the developer?
She's been buying up property around this Lotus Point.
And these people won't sell.
Right, exactly. Because she wants to put up like a big, I don't know if it's a hotel or a resort complex, how they refer to it as, but it sounds like it would really change that oceanfront, the nature portion of it and things like that. And
now, does the Wolfbridge group already is also involved in this, or they now want to be? Because
they help her. The Wolfbridge group is the one that used
they got her the variance.
Their connections to help her get the variance. Correct.
So that's their stake in this.
Right. And that's why Laura's so curious, like, Abby, who the hell are you? How did you get a variance to change and develop this oceanfront that you have me buying up property for you because you're trying to build this big complex? And that's when Abby's giving Laura like 5% of the pie to kind of appease and keep her mouth shut and just go along with the plan and not ask too many questions.
Yeah, and then I remember a scene. The scene you were talking about where Laura, you said Ben. The couple goes to Ben, or Ben goes to the couple, and they don't want to sell or whatever.
Exactly.
And then there's another scene where Laura is offering them all this money, and they just don't. They're like, "This is our home. This has always been our home.
Correct.
We're retired. It's paid off. Whatever." And the husband's pretty much like, "I've never been one to turn down a fight. Like he's just ready to fight for his home."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Ooh, something's gonna happen." I was like, the Wolfbridge group, the mob, they're gonna kill it.
Yep.
Gary and Kathy spend the night at the horse ranch and share the same bed.
Right.
And while Gary was not in his boom booms, he was in pajama bottoms and he was shirtless. So thank you.
Yeah. And he and Kathy are like taking forever to go to bed, and I'm laughing. I'm like, who like goes to bed and leave the lights on, and they're saying goodnight to each other like 3 times over. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, and while nothing happens, Then in the morning, she starts snuggling with him, kissing his neck.
Right. She wants a little piece of Gary Ewing because she's worked out with him and she's seen him in those great
Because she's
shows.
worked out with him.
Yeah, she
She knows
tries.
she's not a little piece. She knows, yeah, I want to ride that stallion. Come on.
And after a few kisses on the
Get him in
neck,
the
he
morning.
turns to her and they start making out. And I was like, morning breath, people. Come on, morning breath.
Right. And then he pushes away and
Never
he says,
unsoaked.
you know what? I'd easily do something like that if I was still an alcoholic. But he's like, I'm trying to change and be a better person, and I can think a lot clearer now. Because
And
he
make
even
better-
tells her, she asks him, did you sleep with CG? And he goes,
I can't
I
remember.
honestly don't know. I black out. But he kind of
We
says
don't know either.
he thinks that he didn't, but it is
Yeah.
kind of funny. I like too
Yeah.
how the writers here cleverly addressed, because they're laying in bed and she looks at him. She goes, "How'd you get that scar on your chin?" Because Ted Shackelford has one, and he goes, "I was drunk and fell through, what do you say, a shower plane glass door or something like that."
Mhm.
So it's kind of
I kind of chuckled because, well, I'm sure it was a hit to her ego. Like, yeah, if I was drunk, I'd sleep with you. Like beer goggles.
right. Oh my
Well,
god!
she does
But
get a little
real life,
bitter
yeah,
after
wouldn't-
that.
I wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole.
Right? Oh my god!
I have when Karen returns home, she doesn't even notice that the house is in shambles.
And Mac,
And Mac is
calls
like,
her out on
Karen, look around.
it. Right. And then she does. Then she just starts crying and having a meltdown. It's like coping skills
Yeah.
gone out the window.
Yep.
Val tells Ben. Oh, Ben comes to see Val to talk about the pregnancy, and he's actually very supportive and happy about it. And that's when she kind of realizes, I gotta tell him. And she tells him that it's not his, and that it's Gary's.
Right.
And he storms out.
He just up and leaves.
I love that because on every other soap they never do that right away. So
Right.
this was a nice change.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Abby has a visit from Mark Sinclair of the Wolfbridge Group, and he
Oh,
advises
I
her
love- I love this.
of everything that the group is capable of.
Correct.
At first, she pushes back. She's like, "Listen, I don't want a partner. I don't need this." Like,
Exactly.
and he's
he
just
said-
like, "Mm."
He says, well, you got your land variance pretty easily, and that could easily be taken away. You really don't have a choice. And he's like, she can consider that elderly couple, the Marcuses, neutralized.
Neutralized. When he said neutralized, I was like,
He's like, and no longer her problem. And she's just like looking at him
Yeah.
and he walks out the door. So he just comes in,
I love
has a
that.
1 minute twirl-a-whirl, and basically pumps up his chest and asserts his power and leaves and says, you got a partner whether you like it or not.
and
I
I,
love
think
that she gets
Abby has
noticed
that doe-eyed
because-
look. Like, what did I just get involved in?
Exactly, because now the
Mhm.
entire season, Abby's felt like she's been pulling the strings, even if they've been behind the scenes the whole way. And now all of a sudden she's realizing she's taking a back seat and she's getting really nervous.
Yep.
Mhm.
And she runs to Greg pretty quickly
I love
next episode about it too.
Karen calls the pharmacy to get a refill, and they won't give it to her. So she calls the doctor and says that she lost the last bottle, and gets him to call her in more pills.
Right?
Does Karen have another fight with Mac?
Well,
Or-
he came home because I think they were supposed to go to an event together, and he's yelling at her because he can hear the shower going.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, hurry up, we got to get going, da 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 da. And he
Yeah.
opens up the bathroom door,
Mhm.
sees the empty bottle of pills on the floor. He picks it up and he hears the shower run, and he opens the shower and looks down, and she's so stoned and out of it. The water's just running on her and she can't even move. She's like spaced out till next Wednesday.
Yes. So, okay. This scene I remember, like, as, like, just from this whole storyline. So the last 3 episodes, I kept thinking we're going to end with this scene.
Oh, funny.
Like when she ran upstairs after she overheard Eric, Val, and Max talking, I thought she ran upstairs, took some pills, took a shower, and that's how they found her.
Got
Didn't
it.
happen.
Got
And then episode 13, for some reason, I remember that robe. And I thought, okay, she's going to fight with Mac, go upstairs, he's going to find her in the shower. It didn't happen. And then it finally happened in this episode. I was like,
You're like, there it
finally.
I remembered it. I just didn't remember where it happened. Oh, funny.
And I feel like if this were a different show, you would think she was dead because her eyes were open.
Right.
But Michelle Lee did like this one like twitch with her eye just to kind of show you that she was not dead, that she was just stoned out of her mind.
Exactly.
I like this episode. I give it a 9.
This episode was really good and powerful. I'm gonna say 9 as well.
I'll go with a 9.
Sometimes I feel like Eric's like 10s across the board every episode.
But it's 9s across the board. And that's pretty damn good. 9 is a great score.
I just think it's all really well written stuff, and I think it deserves good scores.
Yep, exactly.
So episode 15 is called Forsaking All Others. And it opens with Karen basically at a, would you call it a rehab facility?
This.
Yeah, like that super close up of her face, and they're flashing the lights in her eyes and seeing those dilated pupils. She's basically getting checked into a clinic, and she doesn't know it. And they're also
dark circles under her eyes.
Interviewing her and asking her questions to try and find the history on what her drug use is.
Yeah, what pills are you taking? How many milligrams? How many did you take?
And so this was a shock to me when I really paid attention. It's like she wasn't just taking that whatever. I can't remember.
She was taking 2 other things.
She was taking 2 other things, so she kept getting billed for this, that, and the other. So it spiraled.
When she spiraled
so quickly.
When she grabs her purse and took out the bottle, I was like, oh, the bottle. I don't know what she was taking. And then she took out another bottle, and then she took out another. I was like, how many bottles do you have in there?
Right? And then she's like, I spilled some of them in the
she couldn't think of the word
toilet,
sink.
you know, and she couldn't even say it, like the sink. And it's like, oh my God.
And then she's like, like she does, she's in every scene. I have to go, like, and they're like, no.
It's a good thing that the Mackenzies don't have that dog that Karen talked about in the pilot, saying if the dog comes over, just let us know. We'll send over the poop.
Oh right.
Yeah. Because I'm like, the dog would have ate all those pills that you dropped on the floor there, Karen, and also be in a coma.
Oh, dog.
It was this episode I was watching, and I looked up the Emmy performance because I thought this episode alone she should have put in for an Emmy. Because I thought she was excellent.
I loved when they were trying to admit her and she just like was not having it. Like they were in the bedroom, her roommate was there, and she was like, "Could you please stop touching my stuff?" Because the roommate was like looking. And I like how Mac just like sternly like holds her by her shoulders and is like, "Karen, you need to get help. You either get help or I'm walking."
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, "Ooh, tough love."
He did give her some tough love. She needed to hear that because she wanted to go home, and he's like, "No, you're staying, or else."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's out in the hallway too, using the pain phone, checking on those indictments against the Wolfbridge group. So that's closing in really quickly. He's getting what he wants to take that group down.
Yeah. The Wolfbridge group is kind of like doubling down on Sumner taking care of Mac, like either getting rid of him or they're going to get rid of him.
They're like telling him, you got to do it today or else stuff is going to come out and blah, blah, blah. It's coming out irregardless, so you should best be doing it.
Mark Sinclair has a conversation with Abby, and he brings up the fact that she and Karen own shared property at Lotus Point. And when she confirms that is what Greg uses as a way to kind of like phase Mac out of his campaign.
Yes.
And I was like really paying attention to the details of this. I'm like, oh my God, this is good.
he painted himself as the victim because he made it sound like Mac was being deceitful, that the Mackenzies were trying to profit and make money off of getting this land variance to develop this land, which he says they have the right to do, but the means they went about it, maybe not getting things approved the correct way for. There's a lot of things like where there's natural habitats and things like that. It takes a lot to go through to get that developed into something else.
But Greg is campaigning as an environmentalist.
Exactly, and that's why Gary liked him so much too. But meanwhile, he's got all these dirty dealings because he's got this dirty money coming from Wolfbridge Group supporting his campaign. So yeah, you're right. Greg gets in front of the mic and paints the picture that way without talking to Mac about it first, because really he can't. He's got to save face. And he does. And Mac walks into his living room and sees this press conference going on with Greg's wife and daughter sitting right there too. And they're in shock and probably like, yeah, that's my dad.
So Karen is watching TV, I guess, in like
She sees
So-
the press conference too.
Yeah, in the common room, I guess, of the rehab center.
Sure.
And she runs to her room, she starts packing her bags like she could just like let herself
Freaking.
out. Yeah, and the
Gotta go, I
doctor's
gotta help
like,
my husband.
yeah,
She takes the robe off. She starts putting her coat on and everything, and the doctors are like laying her down on the bed. And she's convulsing. I really thought they were going to strap her down.
yeah.
Not
Did they
really.
give her a tranquilizer? Did
Well,
they
I
like
thought
sedate
that
her?
too, and I'm like, she had her jacket on. They would have had to try and get that out.
Yeah.
They didn't show a scene of giving her anything.
Yeah, I was like, oh, they're gonna sedate her. I know it.
I think they did after a little bit, and the
Mhm.
doctor was giving her something, and then Mac kind of walked in too, and he's like, "You got to stay here. I need you to get better." So then he kind of demurred a little bit too, but
Yeah. So now Gary's starting to ask questions
Mm.
to Abby.
He shows up at the office, and he's like, he's asking the same thing too. Don't you and Karen have that land? And and Abby's kind of playing stupid. Laura's
Yeah,
just
he's like,
side
didn't you
eyeing.
offer to buy her out? And she's like, yeah, but she told me no. She's like, I guess she had other ideas for the property.
Right?
And Karen can't defend herself. Karen doesn't even know what day it is, what a sink is. She can't say fine.
Right? He says, is this when he says too that he's going to have an audit done?
He's gonna have an audit. Yep.
And that's when Laura and Abby are like, uh-oh. What did they find?
Yep.
There's a scene where Laura
I have
is
so
Laura
many
going to
notes
visit
for this
Karen and she has a plan and then she like decides not to.
Say that again, Tommy. Sorry.
Laura, I think, is going to visit Karen. Like she has a plan.
She does
And then
have
she decides
a lot
not
of
to.
flowers, and
Yeah.
she sees the press hounding Mac as he's walking up to her room, and she's kind of like, I got to get out of here. Because
Yeah.
again, she's just worried with what's going on and what Mac's being accused of with that land variance in Lotus Point.
Mhm.
Laura's starting to get nervous because she's a little close to this too, and could she be implicated?
Yeah. Greg makes a visit to the Mackenzie house to explain himself to Mac.
And he again plays the poor me victim card here quite a bit.
Like if I didn't reveal it, like my competition was gonna do it.
Exactly.
And he's like, he should have called me and like verified, and he's like, you're right, and for that I apologize.
Exactly. He only apologized for the fact that he didn't call Mac, so Mac could have kind of broke the news to his family. So
Yeah.
Greg, I think that's the only thing that Greg has a little remorse from, but yet he spins around on his heels and walks out the door. So it's like he can't even be in the room with Mac for more than 2 minutes because he's choking on his guilt, so he gets the heck out of Dodge.
Mhm.
Or the
Yeah.
cul-de-sac, whatever you want to say.
Yep.
This isn't. I don't think this is Mary Frances' last episode because I feel like I remember how she leaves, but they say that she's going back to Sacramento with
Her mom.
Jane.
Yep.
Yeah.
What else? I didn't really take too many notes on this episode.
I took way too many on this one. I'm kind of looking through here. This is the one, too, that they learned that the Marcus's place is burned down.
Mm.
Oh. So
Yes.
Abby says to Laura, get out there tomorrow, make him an offer.
And that's when Laura says they're not going to sell. She's the house, and she's like, there is no more house.
Exactly. So she's like, we could at least buy the land now since there's no house on it because they're not going to stay there and live there unless they rebuild, and they're probably going to be scared enough to want to leave at this point. This is
Yeah.
when also, too, Mac was there visiting her. Mary Frances and Jane announced that they were leaving. Everybody kind of goes. Karen was supposed to go to group and she didn't go. And then Karen's roommate comes back after the group session saying,
All right.
you missed out on the group session. It was a good one.
It was about
She's like,
denial.
you're living in denial. If we're not alike. She's like, I might get my drugs from the street. You get yours from your doctor and write it off on your taxes. But we're no
Mhm.
different. And she
Yeah.
goes, and you do that for now, hinting at like Karen, if she keeps on the path that she is, she's going to really spiral and become an addict and be like going to the streets to
The streets, yeah.
to get drugs.
I love
So
that scene.
it was a good wake up call for Karen because she kind of sat there and you could tell she finally listened and heard that and she was processing it.
Mhm.
Because now she is going through detox and drying out and her brain's able to absorb a little bit more of what's being told to her by
Right.
others.
Yeah, prior to that, she just kept saying she wanted to see her doctor, the one that prescribed her the medication.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And Matt comes to visit, and he's like, "I know you want to see him, but you gotta." She's like, "I just want to come home, and be with you." And he's like, "I want to be with you too, but I need you, but I need you healthy. That's why you have to stay here."
Yep.
And the last scene is Sumner winning the campaign for senator.
He's winning the primary that they vote because his competitor that was also fighting to be on the ticket to be voted for governor in November pulled out or resigned or whatever. So now like Greg's got less competition.
Yeah.
And this is like, I don't know, let's say it's February or March or something like that. It's still going till November and his team's going to be working, but his chances are that much greater to be senator for California.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. And the Mackenzie / Fairgrades are watching this from the couch in the common room at the rehab. And I like the shot of Karen, like when she realizes he won and like everything that's been going on. She just kind of like does a quick like look at Mac to see how he's
feeling very defeated looking at the TV. I mean, you can kind of just see right through him because he right now too is dealing like, my God, my wife's in rehab. My name's been smeared. I've lost my job / role. The public thinks I've done this. You know, he's like, how do I come out from under all this?
I thought this was an interesting shot because here you're seeing the picture of a perfect family on television. And here are the Mackenzies who, for all intents and purposes, are as perfect a family as you can get.
Right.
And they're kind of in shambles, but they're still together and they're on the couch and they're watching this.
Exactly.
So I thought that was an interesting mirroring of the two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how the episode ends on Mac's face.
Yes.
You have anything, Eric?
No, I think we covered everything. Oh, I thought it was weird that Jane and Mary Friend said they were leaving when in the previous episode they said they were staying. I was like, were they supposed to stay? Or
well, like I don't know if it was Greg's campaign manager or just the woman that Karen asked for tranquilizer, but she like questioned Jane about leaving, and she said, "I have my own career," and we both said that one wasn't going to be, take precedent over the other, and we're married, but we have our own professional lives.
I think Jane also knows too, because Abby keeps showing up, that something's going on physically between Greg and Abby too. And that's when Abby showed up at the campaign headquarters and she started grilling Greg about St. Clair. And Greg's like, hey, if you're going to play in this kind of water, you got to accept the fallout that comes from this. You know what I mean? Well, the whole land grants and now how he's wanting copies of all the Lotus Notes files and considering them partners and blah, blah, blah. So then Abby kind of spins and leaves. But she still stops and Greg sees it and shakes Jane's hand on her way out and then leaves. So Abby's trying to put up smoke and mirror appearances, but Jane's kind of got it figured out. Jane's slowly falling out of love with her husband and his political ambitions is what's happening.
Okay. So you think Jane changed her mind through that period?
I do. I think when she came to town and visited and saw all the things that were going on and she silently sat on the sidelines and observed it all, she's kind of like, I want to take my daughter and get out of here because she's upset that Frances got dropped off at the Mackenzies instead of staying with Greg. She comes to town and finds
with
out,
her,
and Greg wasn't transparent about any of this stuff and what was going on.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, how would you guys rate it? Lynn?
No, I knew you were going to pick me first. I don't know. This is so good because of the scenes with Karen and losing her shit at the freaking clinic was so good. I'm gonna say 9 on this one too. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed Karen really having to go through that withdrawal and still being in huge denial about what's going on. Michelle Lee was excellent in this episode, in my opinion. So that's why I'm going to say 9.
I'm going with 9 points. I'm going with 9.5 because I think just for Michelle Lee's performance alone.
There you go.
Loved it.
This one was a little bit. Although I am enjoying it more now that I'm more into the details, it was a little bit more political for my taste.
Right?
So that's why I kind of want to give it a 7. I don't know. I also for me, the experience of Knots is also the cliffhanger, and this wasn't really like a cliffhanger. It was more of like a deeper, dramatic ending.
Right?
Maybe a 7.5. Sometimes I like
Michelle
the
Lane will be
shocking.
mad.
Sometimes I like the over the top shocking moments
Got
more
it.
than I.
Well,
So for me, it was like a 7.5.
and when you compare it to these 4 episodes that we watched, I get what you're saying there, Tommy. So yes, that rating is fair if that's what you feel. So that's all
I
good.
mean, I upped my rating on the other ones. Just talking
Right.
about it made me more excited about it. But I gotta dig in my
Again,
heels at
just
some
for-
point.
For Michelle's performance alone, I feel like needed a high score.
Right.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Abby Scale.
Very cool.
We will be back with another bunch of episodes very soon. As always, you can find us at Queers and Soaps on all the socials. And until next time, have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye, guys.